Hello. Um, I've seen a couple videos that rank the survivors, kind of giving their thoughts on them, how they rank. And no offense to them, but a lot of those rankings seem to be rushed, in my opinion, because it came out right when the game came out. So after playing the game for a while, I wanted to share my thoughts on the survivors and the demons. Basically, what they can do well, what they won't do well. I'm not really interested in ranking them. If a bunch of people really want me to try to rank them, sure, but my kind of thinking is like tomato, tomato. Some of them are good for one thing, some of them are good for another thing. So, anyways, let's get to it. As you can see, my leader Ash and my support Ash are not leveled up all the way. So, to be perfectly fair, I don't have a lot of experience playing as either of those characters. I do have quite some experience playing with them or against them as Survivor or Demon. So, let's start off with our leaders then. Leaders are basically like a average across the board. They're your average players. They excel at fear reduction, and really they're really useful when they're around their team. So let's start off with Ash. Now ignore the build because I don't really have a build. I'm still putting him together. But what he can do is he can damage balance bars, and basically that'll stun some enemies around him, or at least get him closer to stun. Not a bad power, but in my experience playing as Demon, it's never really done much. Um, this is where he kind of excels at with his leadership abilities is fear reduction. So if you have hunters and you're worried about the hunters getting scared and being possessed and then shooting their team with high power weapons, this he's actually good in terms of offsetting that fear and making sure the hunters are okay and they're not attacking anything, anything that they don't mean to. Start the match with a chainsaw. I don't really care about the chainsaw. It's a it's good at dealing damage, but it's frankly slow. And the only Ash that really rocks it is the Warrior Ash. And then basically you enhance your fear reduction effects with this after doing a finisher or dismembering an enemy. So again, fear reduction is really where he excels at. So that's Ash as a leader. He excels at fear reduction, but he's very weak when he goes on his own. He's not an independent character. None of these leaders really are. But Ash is pretty like when I play Demon, I'll target Ash because he's not very powerful on his own. And even with the fear reduction, he's just a normal player, like a leader. So yeah. Now we move on to Annie, and Annie actually is probably the most recent one I discovered her kind of abilities. Um, so of course she's the ranger for the leaders or the hunter. She will help out any hunters and basically anyone with a weapon. They do 30% more damage with her power, and yeah, that's basically what she does here. So 30% and 25%, so that can add up nicely. Now this is where she kind of is different. She actually has a good ability to damage balance bars. And it took me a minute to realize what balance bars were. This is also more balance bar damage to elites and bosses. Um, the elites are 25%, the bosses are a whopping 100%. I felt that in a game before too, where I was playing as Warlord and I saw an Annie. I was like, okay, that should be easy to take down. There were two hunters with her and they obliterated me. Like my boss went down immediately. My units just got stun locked all the time. This is where Annie really shines. She's a good leader when it comes to like stun locking and keeping your demons pretty much like, always drooping over like, ugh. So if you see a couple range people, Annie is not a bad choice. She's really good at basically just stunning the enemies. And then we come to Lord Arthur. I've said this a couple times before, but I'll reiterate. Even though Lord Arthur looks like a warrior, he is not a warrior. He is just as weak as Ash and Annie if they go on their own and try to do the game on their own. Can they? Sure. But I've had multiple times playing as Demon where I run across some of these leaders just by themselves, and it's game over for them usually at that point. Now, Lord Arthur is kind of the opposite of Annie. So Annie is very good with hunters. Arthur is very good with a warrior class. So let's go into why that is. So yeah, Arthur causes a 20% increase in melee damage. He also helps a little bit with fear. Not a lot, but a little bit. Let's see. And then your heavy attacks and your light attacks, everybody, not just you, but everybody in your aura will also get an increase in their damage output. And then you can extend your power when you do finishers. And your power being the 20% extra damage. So you can try to extend that. Not really a big deal to me. But as I said, Arthur is somebody that really excels when it comes to warriors. So, not to get too autistic with the build here, but basically I try to make him somewhat like a warrior, so you can work with them better. Melee stun, melee weapon damage. Basically, he's kind of like a melee guy, but he can also work well as a ranger. Or a hunter. He can do some damage with a ranged weapon pretty well. Now let's get down to the warriors. And Warrior Ash seems to always get picked immediately. And he's not bad, for sure. He has a Wise Man's Potion, which helps everything, frankly. It increases the damage you put out. It decreases the damage you take in. It restores some health, and it reduces some fear. So that's pretty useful for him. It has a cooldown period, which they're not really showing me here. But if your Ash is about to get scared, he can take the potion and he'll lose the fear right there. So you don't have to worry about running to a light, at least not immediately. Also, if his health is getting low and there's no Shems or he needs a little boost in health, the potion's also good for that. So he definitely has a pretty good power here. It's just like all across the board, jack of all trades kind of potion. Here's another one that makes him interesting, where it kind of gives reason why he's not my favorite warrior. This is Shield Blast. Shield Blast, I think this is, yeah. Shield Blast is basically you build up your own armor. So you can build up your own shield, because if you do a finisher, your shield bar will go up a little bit. And if they take out the shield, then you will explode and cause them damage. So between these two, there's a lot of good synergy there with damage. But I kind of have an issue with it. Oh, and his last thing is Weapon Master Chainsaw. So this is why he's the only one that I think really can rock a chainsaw well, is he does it faster. So the slowness isn't as much of an issue. And it's a pretty powerful weapon at that point. Now, my issue with Warrior Ash, though, is this, that he has to do a finisher. And finishers aren't a great idea all the time. When you do a finisher, you're in a stun lock with an enemy, and it takes a couple of seconds for you to kill them. And that's what most Warrior Ashes are going to do, because you want to gain your shield, right? But the problem with that is, if the demon puts out a bunch of enemies, then your other team, like the support people or the leaders, they're going to be getting attacked. And there's only so much you can do when you're just stuck in stun lock after stun lock after stun lock. Basically, you won't be able to really help your team out as much, because you'll be stuck in these animations. And therefore, I don't think he's that useful. He just doesn't really do an output of damage. Now, speaking of output of damage, I want to talk about Scotty. Scotty is, in my opinion, very, very underrated. Let's get into his abilities. The reason he's underrated is his Thunder Thrust frankly sucks. The only time I've really seen this useful is if a portal spawns a bunch of basics, or if you're just surrounded by them and you can't really move. It could be good for just shuffling them around a little bit, being able to get around them. This is another one I don't really see being useful. It's lateral damage. You basically hit you'll just do extra damage to enemies around you. So it's okay, whatever. Um, Exposure therapy, so he's pretty good about keeping his fear down. So that's the nice thing about him. Although I would argue that warriors aren't very threatening when they're possessed. Not so much as hunters, anyway. So he can't really do much range damage. He can do a pretty good melee damage if he's possessed. But, I mean, a lot of times the other survivors just pull out ranged weapons, and they have an advantage over warrior in that regard. So even if you do possess a warrior, it doesn't do much. So I don't think a warrior having a fear reduction thing is necessarily great. But this is why I love Scotty. The lumberjack axe is the best weapon in the game, and he can do it even better than anyone else. He has a weapon mastery with it, so he's faster, does more damage. So what I've seen with Scotty is early game he's not that great. He's a basic warrior, but if you're able to find a good lumberjack axe and you really can like level up his fighting, he turns into a destroyer. Like he will do so much damage. I've had experiences playing as Scotty where like 5 basics get spawned in, and with like 2 swings they all go down. Now that's with a legendary axe, but even so, with a regular axe, you can still do a crap ton of damage. Like just how fast he is and how much damage he puts out. So if you want to think of him differently than the other warriors, he is the damage and attack focused one. So yeah, he is also really good against bosses. You go face to face with them, and he can fuck them up pretty quickly with his hits. And he's also really good for crowd control. All the warriors are, but he is really good with crowd control. He has how fast he can swing his axe and how much damage it puts out. Go over the build I got for him real quick. So this is for combos, so more damage, melee damage with dismemberment, sharp weapons, because my focus here is the axe, and that's a sharp weapon. Light melee, heavy melee, the balance bars, and that's blunt weapon, but I don't really care about blunt weapons. That's more of Henry's thing, and I'll show you that in a sec. And then damage you receive. So basically, I try to make him a tank and a damage expert. Now, he can go down. If you're not careful with him, he's not, like, invulnerable or anything. So he can go down, but while he's up, he can do a lot of damage. A lot. So that's basically Scotty in a nutshell. And now we have Henry the Red. Henry is, frankly, a beast. I think he's definitely one of the top survivors. He has a really good ability, this one, Unstoppable. That's basically makes you invincible for 7 seconds, as you see there, which is really good if a teammate goes down. Because if a teammate can go down, he can run up to them and basically pull up the survivor without any issues, any problems. That has carried a lot of games, or it's been really clutch with him. Let's see, shields up. Start with an additional shield bar. So yeah, you can also gain more shield bars or one extra one. So you can max out a shield bar. And basically, as Scotty is the one that attacks, is a really good attacker. Henry is more so a defender. Like he's good at defense, protecting himself. Similar to the Scotty one. If you do damage, it kind of affects them around you. So he's good for jumping in and just brawling. Not a huge deal. Again, I don't really see those in practice as Demon or Survivor. But, it's something. And then maximum health, maximum shield bar length. So, yeah, he's where Henry excels at is defense. He's a pretty good tank. He does really good damage. And he's very good at defending himself. Be it with shield power-ups or with his ability. So going into him, it's a little bit similar to Scotty. A little bit of dismemberment damage, but mainly blunt force. Blunt, heavy melee, blunt. So basically why I do blunt is I think his best weapon is a sledgehammer. Henry is really good with a sledgehammer, can deal a ton of damage, and yeah, so basically this build is focused around finding him. I said I wouldn't really get into builds. I'm not trying to get too into builds. Apologies for the inconsistency there. So that's basically your warrior class. Ash is good all around. Scotty is really good at damage, and Henry is really good at defense. Now let's get into the hunters. And the hunters, honestly, I think they're the most powerful ones. Let's start off with Ash. So Hunter Ash has two pretty good abilities here. This one is where you can basically just exorcise the demon from a possession, completely cucking them out of their whatever possession they're doing, which makes Ash an ideal for just running off on his own, because hunters have higher stamina than everyone else, so they're really good at just running around and doing their own thing. And if the demon finds Evil Dead 2 Ash, and starts messing with him, you can just push him out and early in the game. The demon's going to be struggling to get points and do anything. So he's really good for running around on his own. I wouldn't say the best, honestly. I would say that's probably Kelly, but he's also really good. This is also good, especially if you're newer. If you don't really have an idea about where treasure chests spawn, he can actually see them. So he's a good starter character in terms of figuring out where chests are and kind of learning how they spawn. I found it really useful when I first started playing. Now I kind of have an understanding of where they appear typically, so I don't really need it as much anymore. But again, it's a really good way to train you on chest spawns. Double barrel. He starts with the double barrel, kind of like old Leader Ash starts with a chainsaw. He gets the double barrel, and he's also good with the double barrel. He does a faster reload and deals increased health, balance bar, and dismemberment damage. But I'm not really a huge fan of shotguns. I find that long gun ammo goes down really quickly, where 3 people, including warriors, have long guns that are just sucking up all the ammo. And so he's I don't like feeling committed to a double barrel. And when I play Evil Dead 2 Ash, that's kind of how it seems with him, is that he's just like, if you really want to get the most out of him, you have to use his double barrel. But he's good with other range stuff. As I said, he's really good alone. You can find crates, and you can exercise the demon in case he's trying to mess with you. So yeah, he does pretty well on his own. When it comes to the other survivors and synergy with them, he's a basic hunter. He doesn't do anything super amazing. He can do, like, really just the exorcism is the only thing that really makes him stand out from the other hunters, I think. And it's an okay ability, but playing as demon enough, I kind of know how to work around it. Where if somebody's possessible, like another hunter, I'll possess a basic unit. He'll exercise that, and then I'm able to possess somebody without having to worry about that. Ed Getley. Ed has been considered one of the worst characters when you look at Survivor tier lists on YouTube. They say he sucks, and I can kind of understand why they would think that. His main ability is that his flashlight can disarm traps, which is okay. It's not amazing, but if you really want to scout an area, especially with your team, he's really good for disarming traps. So that's one less attack pattern that the demon has, which is nice. Another one is flashlight, which I kind of like this personally. It's just personal preference, but I like being able to just keep the flashlight on all game because sometimes it gets pretty dark. Another one is Weapon Master crossbows. Kind of like Evil Ash. I don't like the idea of being stuck with a crossbow. Crossbows, frankly, suck in my opinion. They're just slow, and you gotta aim it just right. I'd rather use a revolver. Here's where Ed shines. Ed shines when you get him at 25. He can basically find more valuable items. So basically, the demons will drop more items, as well as you will find rare crates. So for that alone, honestly, I probably have played Ed the most because that is such a great advantage. When you can find legendary crates in the beginning, you're already like nearly leveled up. You're like half your team has legendary weapons. This is a really, really strong power for survivors. If I see an Ed on a team, that's usually a bad sign because they're gonna have really powerful weapons. And yeah, his ability to just be lucky with crates is insane. Give him a try if you like playing Survivor on this. Totally max him out and give it a try sometime. See for yourself. It's a night and day difference, like how much good shit you can find with him. Oh yeah, in terms of how he actually deals damage, he's a typical hunter. I usually use revolver with him, but he's Really good with stamina, really good with range. Kind of like Alden. Speaking of stamina, now we move on to Kelly. Kelly is very powerful. She has a dodge ability, basically an infinite dodge. Well, more like a 10-second infinite dodge, where she can just dodge the enemy again and again and again and again. So she's also very good for just going off on her own and doing her own thing. Because if the demon tries to attack her, she can just waste the infernal energy of the demon. She can just hop around. She has a ton of stamina already, and she'll basically just waste the demon's time. So if you play as demon and you run across like a Kelly or even an Evil Dead 2 Ash, and you try to mess with them, that could be a game over right there for you. Because hunters are really good at wasting your time, and Kelly is probably the best just due to her ability alone. She also has a weapon mastery with the meat hammer, which might not seem like a big deal because hunters do worse melee damage than pretty much everyone else. Even support, I think, does better damage with melee. But something to consider with her meat hammer damage is while it doesn't do much damage to their health, it does the same amount of damage as everybody else to their balance bar. Add on top of that the meat hammer, you can swing it very quickly, and you can just jump onto a demon, beat the crap out of it quickly with her hammer, and you will get it close to stun. So while she's not a warrior, she does have a skill kind of similar to Annie's actually, where you're really able to stun lock the enemies more if you're good at stick and move with the meat hammer. So she's got versatility here when it comes to melee as well as ranged. So Kelly's no joke. And then next range attack after successful dodge inflicts bleeding, whatever. So dodge and shoot, and you can do a little bit of damage, but bleeding damage, I don't really see it doing much. I've never really noticed it as a demon, and I never really noticed it playing as Kelly. It's just not really much of a factor. The damage it does is so small that I would say it's pretty meaningless. And then Battle Frenzy, kind of like with the meat hammer. If you are out of bullets or you just want to do melee for a bit, if you keep staying in combat, then it'll increase your damage. Not by much, but it's still something that's nice with her meat hammer ability. And I guess the main appeal to the meat hammer and this is how fast she can be with it. She can go really quickly with a tiny little weapon and basically annihilate balance bars for the demons. So Kelly is definitely a very high skill cap survivor. Last, and maybe least, is what's her name? Amanda. Now Amanda. Oh, I haven't leveled up Amanda either. I'll be damned. Amanda has an interesting ability where for 7 seconds you can shoot without having to reload and not using any bullets as well. It's a pretty good power, and it kind of changes. It seems to be meant for the pistol. You can also try it with a revolver. I haven't tried it with the crossbow or the blunderbuss yet, but I would be curious to see how that would work out, since they're single shots and everything. However, in my use of Kelly, whenever I used it, would be like when a boss shows up or something, and they see me activate the ability. What the boss typically does is they'll just rush me. They'll attack me while I have this infinite ammo power. So I'm spending my ability dodging pretty much, and it just feels like a waste, really. If you're just dodging, you barely get a shot out because they're just swinging at you. So her power seems nice on paper, but in practice, when I played with her or against her, I haven't seen it really do much. Now, there's probably smart ways to do it, like figuring out opportunities when this would be useful. I haven't figured that out, though. So I might play around more with her. You start the match with a pistol, which is nice. Pistol is not the best, though. If you're with a team and there's a hunter, you really don't want the hunter to have a pistol because the damage output is just so low. It's not going to do too much there. So really, a pistol is more suited for like support or a warrior because it does so slow damage anyways. You really want the hunters to have high damage range weapons. pistol ain't gonna really cut it. But that's her gimmick, is pistols, I guess. And yep, that's her weapon mastery as well. So she can do good with pistol damage, just that pistols aren't very powerful. It's kind of like doing mosquito bites to a possessed unit. And then if you kind of keep a chain going with your shots, not just firing willy-nilly, you'll do a little bit more damage. Kind of like Kelly with her melee damage. But again, it's not really a huge amount, and it's not something that I've really noticed playing into any game. Going against Kelly or playing as her. I haven't unlocked it yet, so maybe I could be wrong here, but I've unlocked Kelly's, and I don't really see a huge thing when this is pretty much the same thing, but just melee. What is it? Yeah, 2% extra damage per second. I mean, it's nice, but I really don't see it working out too well in a practical sense. Alright, now down to support. Support, to be honest, I think they're boring, but they're necessary. You definitely do need them for the team. Just that the teams I play on, we typically draw straws for them. Start off with Ash. Ash has an ability that, to my understanding, got nerfed. But basically, anytime you do a heavy attack with him, it restores some health to you and your teammates nearby. Which is nice, but it's not that much damage. Like, if there's a lot of pressure on you, you're going to get messed up. This is only really useful if you're not dealing with a demon, if you're just dealing with random basics. Or even if you are dealing with a demon, you can heal people, but it's not at a very quick rate. A lot of times when this is only support, this Ash, I can take them down pretty quickly. Because this is just like slow over time kind of healing. He has another ability, Fear Reduction, which can be useful, kind of like Leader Ash, reducing fear in general. He actually has an ability to do it, but it doesn't do too much. If you're the demon and you keep attacking them, even after he does this power, you can quickly get them back up to fear and possession levels. So this is his heal ability outside of all support, where they drink or take an amulet and they can heal everybody around them. This is his main gimmick, is basically healing people after he hits. But that doesn't do much for hunters unless they really want to get in there. And everyone kind of has to stay close to him. It can work, but in practice I don't really see it working. Mark target. Now this one I haven't really experienced, so I could be a little bit wrong here. To my understanding though, you shoot and you shoot a headshot on this guy, and then your teammates will deal more damage. So they have a 5-second window. That requires some coordination though, so if you really want to see this in action, make sure you have a team you're coordinated with. Let's see. Oh yeah, and if you shoot, if you do a headshot, and if your teammates shoot him again, like they'll restore health. So again, you really have to coordinate headshots with him, and I find that interesting on a support class because they're not really supposed to use their guns, but I guess the idea here is he has options to passively heal people, be it through melee or through range. But overall, he's pretty weak. When I see him as a demon, he's usually pretty easy to take down. He really needs to be around his team, and even then, I'm like harassing him is pretty much the game plan there, and it works out for me. Now we have Cheryl. She is probably the best support. She is let's see. She has the ability I think we all know and love, where she can just put down she can just put down a little circle of healing, and it gives a nice little buff to their health. It's kind of like a Shemps, but she also has the Shemps ability, where if she drinks a Shemps or puts on an amulet, everybody gets it in her area. So the way that people have played Cheryl very effectively is I spawn in as a demon, there's a team there, she just like kind of jumps behind everyone and they all like make a wall around her, and she'll just like hop around basically and make sure that nobody's health gets too low. And played well, she is bad to go against as a demon. You just kind of know you're going to have a little battle with them because her ability of just passively healing people is strong, as you would know. It's just something that like you do all this damage, you try to put all this pressure on it, and with one touch of her ability, she can take away a lot of that pressure that you were trying to put on. She has more shems, and I've made a build for her getting more and more shems. So basically, having her just stocked up on these all the time. So as demon, you really want to pressure the Cheryl and have her drink the shems just for herself, so it wastes her resources. And as a team player, you really want to stick by your team. Cheryls that go off alone usually don't end up well. So you just want to stick around your team, make sure somebody's on board with protecting you. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we got. And last but certainly not least of the survivors is Pablo. Now, Pablo has a wild card ability. So he has a cool thing where he can make an amulet every 2 minutes. So when you play as Pablo, or when I play as Pablo, I typically max out his shields immediately and just keep popping those. And he has this one as well, where you can't see him as a demon. So this makes Pablo a bit of a wild card. He can basically run around and collect pieces of the map by himself and not be harassed by the demon. But I would actually say this isn't that powerful. I've never seen a Pablo outplay me as demon with it. And what happens is, okay, I can't find Pablo. I'm playing as demon. I don't see Pablo. I'm not even really going to look for him. So I just look for the other three. And if he's not around, I just harass the three of them. And they don't have a support guy, or they don't have their fourth person to really back them up on anything. So when he runs off alone, he leaves his team kind of vulnerable. And if he does stick with them, then what's the point of the power, really? So it's an okay power. You can do some interesting things with it, but in my experience with it, it just hasn't really played out to anything amazing. You can collect pieces of the map without being molested by the demon, and even so, your team might still go down. So now you have to run back to them, and now they're all weak and everything. So yeah, this power of his, I just don't think it's the bee's knees. I begin with an additional amulet, and then you gradually build an amulet over time. So those can be good, but when you're in the heat of the moment, like capturing a page or a dagger, it's not going to do too much. But he's pretty good with warriors, because warriors have a very high amulet threshold. How does he compare to the other two? I think he's better than this Ash, but he's still nowhere near Cheryl. He's kind of average. His power is whatever. It doesn't really do any sick plays, so I would say he's middle of the road for support. Alright, now let's go to the demons. So, Warlord. I started off really enjoying Warlord. I've been playing the other ones more now, but she's really good for, she'll spawn good basics. Let's go to see them. Yeah, good basics and good elites. And what they're really good at is power. Kind of like Scotty, but in the demon version. Her demons are really good for just putting out damage with them. As Harry is more defense, Henry the Red, and I would say it's kind of Necromancer. Necromancer is like the equivalent of Henry, because they have those shields, so they can take a bit more damage while also damaging you. Henrietta people are kind of in the open, but they can also do a lot of damage just on their own. And then her passive power is really bad influence, and basically that ups their health, damage, and attack frequency. It's not as good as the flute, but it's pretty good. You spawn a bunch of people in, you pop that, and then you possess one, and you pretty much have like a little flute in your pocket for like Necro. What else does she do? She's a good tank character. Her basics are okay, especially when you can puke on someone and get a bunch of heavies on them. But I think survivors have started figuring this out, so they kind of know to dodge puke. And her Henrietta as a boss is pretty powerful. She moves pretty quickly, deals a ton of damage, and overall she's a force to be reckoned with. I would say that I guess the only downside with her army is the elites aren't very interesting. They do a little bit more damage, but they're big, easy targets, and if they have balance bar and dismemberment, they will tear through those elites pretty quickly. So yeah, that's basically Warlord. She's not too complicated. Once you kind of figure her out, she's really just a damage dealer. She's a little wrecking ball. Um, Probably the lowest skill cap to her. But man, she is sexy. Just look at all that woman. All right, moving on. Now we have Puppeteer. I had a video a while ago saying he's the weakest demon. I still think he is the weakest demon, but he has a lot of potential, and that really comes into possession. So, as people got better at this game, they got better at dealing with your possessed basics or possessed elites or whatever doing damage. And in regard to his Puppeteer's basics and elites, they're both pretty crappy. I mean, his elites can spam lightning and duplicate, but neither of them really do that much damage. It takes more effort to take over them. Or, I'm sorry, more infernal energy to take over them. So it seems like a waste of time. But what I actually found and why I enjoy him more is basically inciting fear in them. The more fear you get to put into survivors, the more you're able to possess them. So if they're doing really well, they got good weapons, holding on to their own. You can start scaring them and then possessing them, and that's when the game really becomes fun. Even though I think Puppeteer is the weakest killer, currently I'm having the most fun with him, just because it's playing a completely different way than you play with Warlord or Necro, because I feel like those two kind of throw their armies at people. Warlord more on attack focus, Necro more on like Zerg rushing or basically spamming enemies at them. But with the Puppeteer, you just basically instill terror and then start having the team attack each other, see who's the best for possession. It's a lot of fun. His basics and elites are kind of ass, and his ability I think is ass. Not necessarily the ability on itself, because it's kind of like the flutist. It's kind of like a bad influence for Henrietta. You basically give a buff to your people, but you can only give it to one person. And not only that, the way it works is very fickle. So I'm looking at a demon. I'm looking at let's say a basic unit just standing there. Okay, I want to possess this guy using the power. So I look at them and I press the button, but as I do, he's animated. He runs away, and that just counts as my power. So you could miss the power, which I think is stupid, and then you pretty much have no power. It's on cooldown without having done anything. So I don't know. I don't like it. I hope they change that, but it's not a really good power. I think in terms of the demons, Elagos has the weakest one. Elagos as a boss though is good. I like Elagos as a boss. He's not a tank like Henrietta. He instead he's invisible, so you really just want to keep fucking with the team, going around and just harassing them while there's like enemies spawning. He's a really good really good boss in that regard, and a lot of times he can throw people off just on how unpredictable he could be. So again, main thing is possession. So basically what I try to do is put more damage into possession, like make them stronger, and yeah, Puppeteer is weak, but once you start learning fear more and possession more, he's actually really fun in that way. Any strengths, any advantage survivors have over you turns into their disadvantage, and I cannot overstate how fun that is. And then we get to our last demon here, the Necromancer. A lot of people like Necromancer. A lot of people have fun with him. When I play Survivor, I run into him the most. I don't think he's that fun, personally. He's okay, but he's... let's go to his army. His basic units are good. They have a long-range spear that has a good damage output and a good range. So they're pretty good for harassing people. His elites are very slow and lumbering. They do a lot of damage, so if everyone's surrounded in like a battle frenzy and you throw one of these in the middle, a lot of times they're not really aware of what you're doing, and they'll get screwed up by the damage, because this guy puts out like a lot of damage. And then you have Evil Ash. Evil Ash, I think, is the worst boss. His main power is basically resurrection, which is nice and dandy. But him on his own, he can do damage as well. But if you're a survivor and you notice like a little fire spiral appearing, like that's how you know he's around. So he's not really good for sneaking up on people because a lot of times people who play Evil Ash want to spawn in and immediately do a resurrection, immediately bring up skeletons, which isn't a bad idea, but any survivor that knows this game even a little bit will know like, okay, Evil Ash is in the area, I need to like target him or fight on him. And when you do have Evil Ash and he is fighting, his swings are powerful but slow and very telegraphed. So I've had a lot of one-on-ones with an Evil Ash where even as like a leader, not even like a hunter, he'll try to take a swing and he'll just jump. He'll do it like 4 times, and then he has like a slow animation of like pulling his sword back up, so you can just attack him then. So he's a very straightforward boss. He's not very powerful, and he's kind of slow and telegraphed. So he might actually be the weakest aspect of his army is the boss himself, because the basics are fine. They have their spears, they have their range, and the elites are powerful but slow. But he's just slow, and he takes a lot of effort to put him out. And the only thing he really does shine at is just resurrection, I think. So now we have the flutist, and the flutist I think is the best power here. That's probably the coolest thing I think about Necromancer is thinking about plays where you want to hide the flutist, like put him in a building and trap it everywhere, or put it like above a cave, which is kind of BS, but a tactic anyways. Um, yeah, you have a lot of options with the flutist and how you want to play him, and and yeah, he does a pretty good buff to them. He's really useful for capture points and everything. But yeah, his ability is very similar to Bad Influence. It's pretty much the same idea. Just instead of like having it right there, you kind of want to hide him away. But hiding away your flutist is really good because when there's 4 survivors and they're in a capture point, you put a flutist down and one of them's going to go off and try to get the flutist, and that's a good opportunity to like single out that person and just take them down. So there's a pretty good skill cap to Necro, just based off the flutist alone, really. Um, but I mean, I'm just personal preference here. I don't really have that much fun with them. I think the other 2 are more interesting. But who knows? I'm still kind of figuring it out. Anyways, that's pretty much everyone. Now I'll quickly summarize. Leaders. I think the best one out of them is. It's actually a tough one. I would say either Annie or Lord Arthur, but I think Annie, just because of balance bar damage, if you really are able to get her up and get her team up to a certain point, she can do a lot of damage with those balance bars and just keep you permanently stunned. Warriors. I like them all, but I think the one I've seen kick the most ass is Henry the Red. His invincibility is amazing. I love Scotty's damage. He is amazing with damage, and Warrior Ash is pretty good too, except people stun lock with him all the time. Henry is a beast, and his ability to be able to pick up people without any consequence from the demon is definitely a really strong power the survivors can have. Hunters. Best hunter is probably Kelly, but I also like Ed a lot just for the looting ability. He's able to drop so much stuff and find legendary crates like more frequently, or even blue crates. Kelly, like on their own, Kelly is definitely better because she's a pretty good hybrid of hunter and warrior with her meat hammer. I forget what it's called, but Ed's chest ability helps you level up really fast. So by yourself, Kelly is good, but for the whole team, which is more powerful, I'd have to actually go with Ed, just for that alone. Cheryl, we all know. And then demons. It's hard to say who's the best. They're all good in different ways. Henrietta is just powerful. She can smack down survivors really quickly. Puppeteer, using fear and possession, basically using them against each other. And Necro with the flute spawning and how you can spam people out, they're all good. Like, I wouldn't really say any of them are shit, or like I would never play this demon. Like, they're all good and they have good things going for them. Probably Warlord, actually. I'm going off my personal opinion here. I know it's probably wrong to some people, but I've seen Warlord stomp the most. Necromancer is good too, but Necromancer is, I mean, if you know how to take down his people, get around the shield, then Necromancer can be kind of underwhelming with that, especially if you have like a Scotty over here that can just like spam attack like his spawns. You get rid of a lot of the Necro's power that way, and then Evil Ash himself's a joke. Puppeteer, I've seen a lot of Puppeteer players not know how to play him. So again, I feel like there's a high potential to be really good at Puppeteer, and sometimes like he can absolutely stomp people if they know what they're doing with fear and possession. But a lot of Puppeteers too I've seen get stomped, including myself, for thinking that he plays similar to these other two. Um, but I do see Puppeteer probably lose the most, and I think that's just due to people not knowing how to play him, like not like spamming people with possessed units, but actually possessing the survivors themselves. I would have to say Warlord. She is powerful. The puke slows you down and gets heavy hits, and you can down someone with a good puke alone. And Henrietta herself is just a beast. So, yeah, I would say Henrietta is the best demon. Anyways, that's basically my thoughts on each and every character in this. I wanted to give this game some time and just basically see how everyone plays out in practice before I jump to any conclusions. So it's been about 2 months now, and I think I could safely stand behind everything I said about each character. Of course, the game updates, the game changes, and there might be differences in the future. This is being recorded at the time of the Kandar Castle being released. So already there could be some differences just with the patch notes, but it's basically small, minute numerical differences. Anyway, kind of a longer video, but just wanted to summarize basically my thoughts on each and every one of them. If you agree or if you disagree, just let me know in the bottom. I love talking about this game, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyways, that's all I have for now, and take care.